Hey guys, welcome to today's webinar. My name's Lenny, I'm going to be your host today. And what I'm going to be covering is how COVID has affected selling on Amazon, whether you're an existing seller or you're new to the game and you're looking to get started. We're going to be talking through some important updates that have happened that sellers need to know about, and it also affects new sellers. Following that, I'm going to be diving into how to find a product if you're just starting out right now and how to do so amongst all the craziness at the moment. Then make sure to stick around until after the presentation because we're going to be going into a live Q&A where I'm going to be answering any questions that you guys might have for me. So if you do have any questions, make sure to drop them in the chat box and I'll try to get into a bunch of them after the presentation. I can see that there's a lot of people in here already. Quick shout out to, hey Rob, hello from Scotland. We've got Darren, Steve, Tanver, Maria, welcome guys. And without any further ado, we will kick things off. Alrighty. So, how have Amazon sellers been affected by COVID so far? I thought it would be good to back up a little bit and go through a bit of a timeline of events that have happened this year so far, because I think the context is important for the decisions that you make right now. So let's go through a bit of a timeline here. Alrighty, so first up, we've got March 16th and March 17th. On March 16th, Amazon announced that they were gonna hire 100,000 employees to keep up with the crazy demand that they were getting. Then on March 17th, that was when they announced that they would freeze non-essential FBA shipments from third-party sellers. Now, for any of you that might have been selling at the time, I'm sure you remember that it was, quite stressful. It was a very difficult thing to navigate as a seller, not being able to send in inventory. But let's keep going. We've got April 1st. This is when Amazon announced that they would be prioritizing key medical supplies to hospitals and government organizations. So at this point, they're still inundated with all of the demand and all of the orders coming into Amazon. So they had to take additional measures and only be focused on essential items. So keep that in mind. Then we've got April 3rd. Amazon is reportedly delaying Prime Day until at least August 2020, and typically it's usually been like in mid-July or so. And today we're now looking more so at October. Then we've got April 13. And this is interesting. This is when Amazon says that announced that they plan to hire 75,000 additional workers. This is in addition to the 100,000 positions that they filled in March, the month before. So keep in mind here the tremendous amount of demand that Amazon was trying to deal with. And at this point, it was all heavily the essential items. They couldn't even keep up with that, and therefore they froze non-essential items being sent in, which if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. Not only that, but they then hired 175,000 new employees to try and meet this demand. The next date that we're gonna look at is April 18th. And this is when Amazon announced that more products are now eligible for shipment creation. So this is around about the date that FBA sellers could see that they were able to start sending in products again, they're able to start creating shipments again. So for everyone that had to deal with not being able to send in products from March 17th, it was approximately a month, or maybe it might have been like 5 weeks. So 4 or 5 weeks that you temporarily weren't able to send in shipments. And that's really the point that I want to get to here, is that it's a crazy time at the moment. Amazon are clearly inundated with all of the demand and all of the shift to online shopping that they're getting. And so they're taking these temporary measures that in some instances, when you look at it isolated, you'll think that it either seems unfair or it makes things really hard for us as sellers. But if you look at it from their point of view, you can start to understand why they made some of these decisions. And you can see now historically that this particular restriction only lasted about a month, or 4 to 5 weeks. Then we've got May 4th. Now, while Amazon had waived long-term storage fees until I believe it was May 15th, they then decided to extend that just because they were getting continued delays with all of their removal operations. You know, you could still create removal orders, but delays were to be expected. Even today, we've removed or created a removal order for some of our Jungle Creations products, like probably weeks and weeks ago, and we still haven't seen those come by just yet. All right. On to the next slide. So that now brings us to July. And one of the hot topics of July, if you hadn't already heard, is that Amazon is restricting new listings to only 200 units, or they can only send in 200 units. This is something that affects new sellers, but also existing sellers if they're looking at launching new products. So this one is, I think, very important to address, whether you're selling now or looking to sell. Now, while a lot of people have gotten stressed over this, and that's understandably so, let's take a step back and again, understand why Amazon did this. If we reflect on the timeline so far, we've seen the incredible increase of demand on Amazon to the point where they hired 175,000 people, which is a lot, to, meet this demand. And keep in mind that they wouldn't make that decision lightly. Then in addition to that, they completely suspended non-essential products being sent in by sellers, but as we saw, this was only a temporary measure that lasted a few weeks while they got on top of this increased demand. So I'd encourage you to look at the long-term picture here and understand that this is a temporary measure. In fact, they even state this on Seller Central. If you go into like the restock inventory screen, it says, we are temporarily limiting the quantity that you can send in for your products. So, is this a pain and a hurdle that you need to overcome in the short term? Yes. Is it gonna last forever? No. Amazon didn't just hire 175,000 people for this COVID period alone. I think that they could clearly see that after all this is over, that increased shopping on Amazon and online is here to stay. So keep that in mind as we're kind of going through this. Also note that, I think it was on May 28th, that's one other date I didn't have here, they announced that they were offering permanent positions to 70% of those 175,000 hires, with the rest staying on on a seasonal basis. So really, when you think about it, this is great news for us as Amazon sellers or anyone that's thinking about starting a business today. We've suddenly had this increased spike of demand really across the board, and now Amazon needs sellers like you and me to help supply for that demand. So now let me show you what this looks like. All right, I'm going to come across to Seller Central. Let me bring this one up. Okay. So we're in Seller Central now, and if you want to see what the restrictions look like for your particular products that you might already be selling, you need to go into your inventory dashboard. So there's a few ways to kind of get there, as there often is in Seller Central. I'm going to come into Manage Inventory, and then over to I'm just going to click on Fix Stranded Inventory, actually Inventory Dashboard. All right. So the first thing that you see here is the Inventory Performance Index, or the IPI score. And this is one of the big factors that helps determine how much inventory you can send in for your product. Essentially, this is based off of how quickly you're getting through or how quickly you're selling your inventory. And essentially, you want that number to be in the green here. So we've had a couple of products that have been selling a little bit slower that's put us just outside of the green. Okay, so essentially, particularly during this period of time where Amazon's got all of this increased demand. They want to make sure that their warehouses aren't being filled with slow-moving stock. And you don't want that either. You want your stock to be going into their warehouses and going out and selling, okay? Because if it's not, then you're gonna be accruing storage fees on a monthly basis, and if your inventory stays there for a long time, such as over 365 days, then you'll start getting hit with long-term storage fees. And if you want to get an idea of what those look like, then come over to inventory age, and then you'll start to see a breakdown of each of your products, and then it'll give you like an estimated fee for the long-term storage. So one variation of our Jungle Snugs has been selling slower, and therefore it's accrued some long-term storage fees. So you can see all of that in there with the estimate, which is super handy. But let me go back to the inventory performance index just for a moment. Now, if you want to see exactly how many units you can send in of your existing products, you come over to the restock inventory screen. And this is where it says that they're temporarily limiting the quantity of products that you can send in for your products. So if we come down here, you'll see a breakdown of all of your products. And the spot to go to is over here. Click on this one here, and it will tell you the maximum amount that you can ship into Amazon, the maximum inventory that you're allowed to store, and how much you're currently utilizing. So in this instance, this is our Jungle Sticks. We actually have just sent in a large order at the moment. Therefore, our maximum inventory allowed is about 3,000 units, but we already have 5,500 units that are already being shipped in, and we managed to get that. That was created before these restrictions came into place. Therefore, that they are gonna slip through and they're gonna be allowed in, but because we're over our inventory level, we're not allowed to ship anything in. Now, if you've got slow-moving products or products that have been out of stock for a while, so for instance, our keyboard trays here have been out of stock for a little while, so they don't have any recent sales history, you'll likely see that you're going to have an inventory level maximum of 200 units, as well as a shipment quantity maximum of 200 units. So that's how much that we could send in of this particular product, okay? Now, also to make this really clear, I'll show you an example down here to illustrate how this works. And an important thing to understand here is that whilst you might be able to send in 200 units or whatever the number is, you can only you can still only send in up to your inventory level. So in this instance, our maximum inventory level is 200 units, but because we've already got 179 there, that means we can only send in 21 units at this point in time. So keep that in mind. All right. So we're gonna go back to our slides. All right. So, as I'm sure you're aware, this does present a few problems. Basically you almost need to go out of stock in order to send in another 200 units. If that's your maximum, you can have maximum 200 units at one time, but you can only, you can't even have, if you've got 100 units in there currently, then you're still only allowed to send in 100 units. So in order to send in 200 units, you essentially need to go out of stock, okay? But if your supplier is in China or overseas, typically the lead times are gonna be quite long to get that stock over to the US. So that means that keeping in stock is gonna be quite difficult. You have to keep a really close eye on how you're selling and really kind of keep your finger on the pulse of your inventory. Now, even if you do send in 200 units at a time, the other big problem here is that either your supplier may not allow you to do a low order quantity of 200 units, or if they do allow it, you'll be paying extra. Because generally speaking, the more you order, the cheaper your price. This is where you can take advantage of the economies of scale. So you might be normally ordering 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 units. So what do you do in this instance where you can only send in up to 200 units at once? So that brings me to the solutions for this particular problem. I'm going to share with you my 4 super ultra ninja solutions to overcoming Amazon's new listing restrictions. Then after that, we're going to dive into finding products to sell online during COVID. So let's get into the first one. So ultimately, with all 4 of these solutions, what I'd suggest is trying to continue ordering whatever amount you typically would. So that might be 1,000 or 3,000 units, whatever the case may be that you currently order. These solutions, I'm hoping that you can still order that same amount. The restriction here is that you can't send in all of that to Amazon at once, but that doesn't stop you from still purchasing all this inventory in order to get the best price. So the solutions that I'm going to be sharing with you are different options that you might have for temporary storage until you can send in more inventory to Amazon. Keep in mind though that ideally, none of these solutions are ideal, but part of entrepreneurship is just making the best of what you have at your disposal. And just keep in mind, as we spoke about earlier, this is only temporary and isn't going to stop you from succeeding long term. So, on to option number 1. This is get all your goods sent over from the US and into the US and see if you have any friends or family or even your own large garage that you can store your products in. So think about do you know anyone that has some spare storage that you could leave your inventory in temporarily for free or for cheap? Then, once you've got it over here, what do you do with all these units? So there's a few different options here. So you can send in 200 units into Amazon, into FBA, at a time. The other option is that you could do FBM, or fulfilled by merchant. This means that you fulfill the orders yourself and there's no restrictions to FBM at all. So you can sell as many as you like. Of course, the only real restriction here is how much that you can physically fulfill in a day when you're sending all the packages yourself. So FBM is definitely an option as well. Again, unlimited amount of sales, selling it out of your own garage or your friends or something like that. The downside of FBM, however, is that you don't get that Prime badge which FBA products get, which a lot of customers really love and they often use because of the quick shipping. A lot of customers will filter by Prime so that they can get that 2-day shipping. So FBM can have a lower conversion rate. That's the main downside here. What I personally would recommend is you could try doing a combination of the two. So for instance, you send in 200 units to Amazon using FBA, so you're getting all the benefits of Prime. Then as that, if you start to run out of that, or when you do run out of that, you could then switch over to an FBM listing fulfilled by merchant and continue to fulfill the products yourself in order to continue selling. And then after that, you're able to send in more inventory into FBA. So again, it's not the most ideal solution, but it is an option. Option number 2, this is where you could ask your supplier to hold on to some of the excess. I definitely think this is worth asking. So still order the 1,000 or 2,000 units that you were going to, but only send in 200 units to Amazon, and then ask your supplier if they would be willing to hold on to your inventory temporarily. you likely know how well your product sells. So, and so would your supplier based off of how frequently you order. So they may not have a problem with holding onto it temporarily. It's definitely worth asking the question. The main downside here is that you're going to still experience that longer ship time for each shipment of 200 units coming from overseas. So keep that one in mind. Option number 3 is to ask your freight forwarder to hold on to additional stock. Again, this is just a temporary measure. I don't know if they all will do this, but I do know that there are a number that are offering to basically, or do have the ability to hold on to your inventory. Particularly in times like this where sellers really need it. The good news about this option is that, like option number 1, your inventory is already in the States, so it's much quicker to send in these smaller shipments to Amazon. You would, of course, pay for this solution, but I think it's still a great option. Which brings me to option number 4, and this is to use a third-party logistics company, or 3PL. Basically, these are companies that are dedicated to storing your product, and then they can also label it and fulfill it as well. So here, send in a large shipment into a 3PL. Again, it's now in the States, so it's a lot closer to Amazon's warehouses, and you can send in those smaller shipments of 200 units as you need them. If you choose to utilize FBM, the cool thing is that 3PLs can actually do all of that fulfillment for you, unlike option number 1, where you're doing it yourself. So they can actually automate the FBM process. So that's really cool. That's what it comes down to with this option. 3PLs can help you automate your FBM process if you choose to do it that way. The main downside is that you don't get the Prime badge, and as a result, you may have lower conversions overall. Keep that in mind. Or you just use the 3PL to store your goods and then continue sending in smaller amounts to do FBA. Now, keep in mind that with all these options that you might start with a limit of 200 units as your maximum inventory level. But if your product starts to, if your product shows that it can sell well and sells quite quickly, then you'll start to see that limit increase. So over time, the restrictions will get less and less, and the logistics of this process will get easier. No one knows exactly how long this will last for, but as we've talked about earlier, it's not going to be forever. Okay, so hopefully one of these solutions will help you out when trying to deal with this restriction. All right. So out of all of these options, which option is best for you? Ultimately, you have to determine that yourself, as it's really dependent on the type of product you have, its dimensions, weight, and a bunch of other factors like that. But what I would do is explore all of these options and get a variety of quotes so that you can figure out the best option for you. Some of the things that I would try to find out is, for your particular product, how much would your freight forwarder charge you to store your product? Then I'd find out, will your supplier hold on to your stock or not? That they may even do this for free. I'd find out, what is the cost of a 3PL to hold on to your stock so that you've got comparisons between that and the freight forwarder. I'd then also get some quotes from your freight forwarder or just shipping quotes on sending from China or from your supplier, sending in 200 units, as well as your full order, let's say 1,000 units. Now with all of this information, you can add up all the costs for each method, and from there you can see which one makes the most sense. So for instance, I typically expect it to cost you more per unit to send in 200 units from China than sending all 1,000 units at once. If that is true, then you might be better off sending all of your inventory to the US to a 3PL or your freight forwarder. This way you get the cheaper shipping amount. Or if the difference between sending 200 units and 1,000 units is fairly minimal, then maybe in your case, the simpler solution would be just to leave all your inventory with your supplier and then just send in all of your 200 units at a time. And potentially your supplier is holding onto it for free. So that's what I'd encourage you to do. I'd encourage you to explore all of these options and see which ones make sense for you. So right here, I'm talking a lot about profitability. So I wanted to share with you a simple profit calculator that we created where you can plug in all of the different costs that you have. Let me bring it up and show it to you. All right. Okay, so this is our profit calculator here. It's divided into two sections. You've got startup costs, which are more these one-time costs when you're just getting started. And then you've got all of your long-term unit costs, and these are all the things that get factored into your total per unit cost, so that on an ongoing basis, you know how much your product costs. So I'd encourage you to come in and use this. This is really handy if you're launching a new product or you're just getting started. I'm sure there's more things that you can add in here, of course, to be incredibly detailed, but this is a really great starting place to help give you an idea of profitability for your product. And I want to mention that profitability is incredibly important, particularly right now as there's a lot of changes happening. And I'm, even what I've just shared with you is, is potentially changing the way that you've the workflow that you've had for sending in your products. There's a lot more fees involved, or just a lot of different factors. So at the end of the day, you want to be crystal clear on what your overall profitability is so that you can continue to be profitable throughout this. So if you are interested in using this profit calculator, it's a shared document. So just come up here, go to make a copy, and then you'll be able to edit your own copy. Then what I recommend doing is I just create a new sheet down here, which is where you can use that as a scratch pad to start listing out all of the costs that I mentioned to help you figure out which of the above methods is going to be best for you. Once you've figured that out, you could start plugging in your shipping costs into this sheet and then calculate your current profitability. So this is a really great one to use, and there's a link to this one in the description below if you want to try it out. All right. Now, one last thing that I wanted to touch on is to find out, do you have an existing FN SKU or SKU that's not selling well? If you do have one that's not selling well, then I'd encourage you to take advantage of Amazon's free removal order. So if you have any damaged products or returns and things like that, typically these would just sit there in your account in an unfillable condition, meaning that they can't be sold any longer. There's nothing that you can do with them there. You would then need to create what's called a removal order to either send them to your own address or send them somewhere to an address you nominate, or to get Amazon to dispose of them for you. But typically, Amazon charges you a small fee per unit to do this. However, in light of them trying to keep their warehouses as efficient as possible, right now they're offering free removals. So if you do have any unfulfillable stock, if you're selling on Amazon, I highly recommend you go into your account today, see if you have any inventory that's unfulfillable, and take advantage of this if you do have any of that unfulfillable stock. It only takes a couple of minutes. You just go into your inventory dashboard, click on unfulfillable inventory, and within a few clicks, you can create a removal order for free. So this essentially will save you a few dollars if you've got some of that stock, which you would need to do anyway. Alrighty. So, you might be saying, after hearing all that, you might be like, Lenny, that all sounds well and fine, but I'm not even selling a product at the moment. What if I'm trying to sell or trying to get started now? What should I do? How do I interpret all the data when I'm looking in Jungle Scout? or other tools. So now I'm going to pivot and share some tips on how to approach product research if you're trying to find a product today. What I do want to note though is that a lot of the principles that we often teach here at Jungle Scout, I'd encourage you to look at the different videos here on our YouTube channel, for instance, the $1 Million Case Study, or if you're a Jungle Scout member, you should go into our Academy, which is a great resource for learning how to sell on Amazon. We've got lots of great material that dive deep into how to do product research, what to look for. A lot of these principles do remain the same even today. Yes, even today throughout COVID, things like you need to have products that have high demand. You don't want them to be too competitive. You need to make sure that it's profitable to sell them. You don't want them to be too seasonal, which is definitely something we're going to talk about today. All these things are still true right now. So keep that in mind. What I'd like to point out are two of the things that I think are different today. Potentially you could argue there's more, but two main things that I think are different when doing product research today. The first one is, should I sell COVID-19 products, okay? We get that question quite a bit. The other question is, number one, should I sell COVID products? The other difference is, how do I navigate the increased demand that we're seeing across the board? You're looking at products now, like a lot of products that you're looking at have a higher demand. Are they still good opportunities? Are they going to go back down? How do you sort of navigate that? Those are the two main differences that I see now and the things that need to be addressed. Okay, so first up, we'll start with, should I sell COVID-19 products? Ultimately, this is a decision that you will need to make, but in a nutshell, my personal opinion is that with COVID-related products, there is a possible high reward at the moment in the short term, but I think they're unlikely to be great for a long-term business. Obviously, none of us knows how long the pandemic will last, but I feel it will end at some point, and when that happens, for instance, we get a vaccine or whatever else, the demand for these COVID-type products, masks, sanitizers, extra soap, all of that sort of thing could drop significantly, okay? And thinking back to, it's a different example, but similar in some ways, like the fidget spinner. That was something that had like a meteoric rise, and everyone wanted to jump on that bandwagon because there was a huge increase of demand. Everyone wanted this product. And a lot of people did really well off of fidget spinners in the short term. But as everyone piled onto that sort of fad at the time, when it sort of came down, we talked to so many people that were stuck with hundreds and even thousands, even hundreds of thousands of these fidget spinners that could no longer sell them because it became oversaturated, really competitive because everyone jumped onto it, and then there was less demand for them. So that is something that you need to ask yourself whether you're, willing to take on that kind of risk. The other thing that I'd say as well is just to check whether you're actually able to sell them or not. So I'm going to come over to Seller Central because I feel like it changes every day, but there's different restrictions on what types of these products you can actually sell. The easiest way to know whether you can sell a product or not is from Seller Central. You just go to add a new product. So catalog, add products. Go to, I'm going to type in the name of the product that I want to sell. So let's say I wanted to sell a face mask. I'm going to click search. I wonder, can I sell it? You'll see some listings here. What you do is come over to show limitations, and then you'll get these little messages here. So immediately I can see you need approval to list this product. So personally, I would stay away from anything that needs approval to sell. There's so many products that you can sell on Amazon that don't require approval, but this is a really neat little trick to determine if you can sell a product or not. So yeah, I definitely keep that in mind. I'd also keep in mind that that at this point now, it's very competitive, or like a lot of people have already jumped on the bandwagon or tried to jump on the bandwagon of selling these types of products. And so I would say it's probably becoming less and less of an opportunity to sell. Now, onto the second sort of difference that I see with product research today, and that's how do you deal with the increased demand across the board? How do you know how to trust this information because the numbers have, escalated or spiked quite a bit? So for that, we're gonna do a demonstration over on Jungle Scout. So let me bring up my screen. Alrighty. Okay, so for those of you that haven't used Jungle Scout before, the very first tool that you'll see up the top here is our product research tools. It's made up of the opportunity finder and product database, which help you generate product ideas if you have no ideas of what to sell. Once you've found some ideas, you can then move them into the product tracker, which helps you verify your product ideas before you go ahead and sell them, okay? But to kick things off, let's go through an example within Opportunity Finder. Okay, so first up, we're gonna select a category to sell in, or first up, I'm gonna select my marketplace. We'll look in the US. You can select whichever categories you like. Some of the ones that I'm going to uncheck, or that I have unchecked here, are ones, electronics categories. They typically have a lot of moving parts, so I prefer to stay away from them. Anything electronic. Anything that goes in and on your body, I prefer to stay away from. Again, there's higher liability with those types of products. And then just things like the Kindle store, we want to sell physical products. Then clothing, shoes, and jewelry. I tend to stay away from that one because people tend to be more brand loyal when it comes to clothing and so on. They like to wear particular brands. They're less likely to spend money on a brand that they don't know about. But you can choose whichever categories you like. Those are just ones that I recommend staying away from when you're just starting out. Let's come over to the filters. So over here, we start with average monthly units sold. As a rule of thumb, I'd say you'd want at least a minimum of 300 sales per month. This isn't an absolute set number, but it's a good rule of thumb. You want to make sure that there's demand for the product that you're looking to sell, okay? At the same time, you don't want it to be too competitive, because if it is, it's going to be harder for you to sell your own private label product in that space, okay? So I've moved the slider down to medium. Then it comes to price. Typically, you'd want a minimum of at least $15 to $18 as a bare minimum. Below that, the profit margins get very slim. And then I would sell anywhere up to $60 or $70, roughly speaking. The reason being is that over that amount, or essentially the higher you go with your price point, the less of an impulse buy that people are going to make for brands that they don't know, or more importantly, products that don't have many reviews. If you're gonna buy a $200 product, you're gonna be less likely to buy from the guy that has 3 reviews versus the one that has, 200 reviews or more, okay? So keep that in mind. Niche score essentially means how good of an opportunity is this product, with 10 being a great opportunity and 1 being a poor one. But for now, I'm gonna leave that one. You can also determine how much search volume you would like per month. So let's do a search with these filters. Well, wait a moment. And now you've got all of these results. So The first thing that I notice as I go through here, and for anyone that's been using Jungle Scout, you might have come across this as well, you'll notice there are a lot of COVID related products. So if you are looking for COVID products, then that's awesome, you can continue on. However, if you're trying to avoid them, I'll give you a pointer on how to remove some of these. So you're seeing like face shield, you're seeing face mask. As you scroll down, you're seeing a lot of COVID related products, which might seem a little bit frustrating, but if you think about it, this is exactly what the Opportunity Finder and what the Jungle Scout tools are meant to do. They're meant to help you find products that have high demand, and that's exactly what these products have at the moment, is a lot of people are buying them. But if you want to avoid these, what I'd recommend doing is coming up here to our filters. You'll see this section here where you can either include specific keywords to reduce the number of results, or you can exclude keywords that you don't want to appear in the search. So that's what I'm gonna do in this instance. I'm gonna go back to my little profit calculator here, and in this other tab, I actually created a little list of some keywords that I've used before that I would like to steer clear of. So I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna paste them in. So we've got things like sanitizer, face masks, coronavirus, face shield, and I'm gonna hit search. All right, let's zoom back out. Now, there's still gonna be some that sneak through here, but for the most part, I've eliminated a lot of those results. So now we're gonna start going through, yeah, actually I've still got hand soap, but you know, what can you do? Let's scroll through. And what the Opportunity Finder does is that it examines opportunities as a whole. So I'm gonna open up one of these. Let's look at elevation bars. So what this does, it doesn't show a specific product, but it's looking at elevation bars as a whole. And there's a lot of great information that you can see here. You can see some averages up the top. You can see that it's selling 8,000 units per month on average. You can see the average monthly price, and this is per unit, by the way. Average monthly price is $19. You can see the average search volume, and you can see the average competition level as well. I think in this instance, that's probably a little bit skewed because it looks like for some reason, we're not capturing information between March and June, which might have brought the competition levels down. So those are like little things that you need to keep in mind. But you've also got things like average price, average search volume, which you can see is really interesting actually, because you can see what it was pre-COVID, and then you can see the sort of meteoric rise that it's had since. And now it's actually, it looks like it's normalizing out, which is definitely, this is one of the things that you want to look at. You can also see seasonality here as well. And this is more based off of like Google Trends type data, and you can see a peak month if there is one. So let's keep looking through. So you're looking at this as a whole. If you want to view this keyword on Amazon, you can click on this button and it will take you over there. So for example, if I just choose this one, choose one of these. Demon, what is that? Ticking fabric. That sounds interesting. If you click that one, it will take you over to Amazon so that you can check out the specific listings. So let's take a look at this opportunity. So the main thing to navigate that's different to what you would do previously is knowing whether or not to trust the sales data, because the numbers are so high. And the best strategy I have for you in navigating this is using historical data, okay? And that's what I'm talking about, or that's what I'm gonna show you here inside of Opportunity Finder, okay? So this is what it's telling us it's doing right now. It's doing 3,000, an average, each listing is doing about 3,000 units per month currently. But you might be wondering, is this a good opportunity? So it's saying 3,000 units per month, a good price point of $30 and the competition's really low. Great, that's exactly what I want. But is this gonna be great as a long-term product? Is the demand gonna go down after, people can get out of their house? Are they gonna stop knitting or whatever they're using this fabric for, okay? The best way to get an idea of this, and it's not gonna be perfect, so you do just need to make some estimations yourself, but let's look at some historical data, okay? And the main goal here is to figure out what was this product doing before COVID. And you wanna use that as kind of your benchmark, okay? I would probably ask myself, would I have still seen this as a good opportunity pre-COVID, okay? And if so, then I would say go ahead with this product, because if anything, I believe that after all of this ends or goes somewhat back to normal, I believe that the demand will stay increased. It might dip down from where it is now, but I do believe that across the board, we're gonna see an increase of shopping online and on Amazon for everything, okay? But in this instance, let's have a look. So, whoops. Sorry, the 3,000 units there is as a whole. So August, we've got here average units sold as 83, then 83 in July. Then we go back to June, 60, and you can start to see where it begins to drop down. So really, if you look from September to May, so what's that, 3, 6, 9 months, which is like a good amount of data. Maybe May's starting to increase a lot, but actually let's go back to April. Because if you look between April and September, that's approximately the same. So you'll see that generally it's selling, each one is selling like 29, 37, 43, etc. So this is essentially what I do. I look at the opportunity and go, pre-COVID, the average unit sold is, and I would just calculate, add up these columns here and divide it by the total number to essentially get the average. And it's gonna be somewhere around about 30 units sold. So I would say, if this sells 30 units, is this still gonna be a good opportunity? Obviously now it's inflated. They're selling about 83 units. Is that going to last? No one really knows. But it looks like even before COVID, it's selling, the units sold is about 30 or 30 to 40. So if you would have sold it pre-COVID or seen it as a good opportunity then I would consider it now, okay? I'd also just look at some of the other historical data because, of course, we don't know the future, but we can look at the past. So I would look at as much historical data as possible and just layer that in on top of all the current considerations. So let's take a look at the average price. Apart from, back in 2018 where there was some little spikes here, throughout 2019 it stayed pretty consistent. You'll see that the price has actually gone up quite a bit. So this is the next thing I would look at and kind of go, okay, all of my profitability calculations are based off of the product price, let's say $28, because that's the average price right now. Again, I would go back and say, what was it selling before COVID when the demand wasn't so high? And it looks like it is selling at like $10, $8, $9, $10 per unit. And I can tell you straight away that quite likely there's gonna be small profit margins within that. this is where, if I was considering this product, I would now probably go, long-term, this may not be the best product. Even though it's selling $28, $29 right now, if it goes back down to what it was selling before, or somewhere in between, it might go down as low as $10. So keep that in mind as well. Start to see what's happening with the search volume. Here's where you can start to see whether it's already going back down. So in this instance, looks like it's gone down, but then it's gone back up again. maybe as, I'm just going to assume, maybe as things started to open up, the demand went down, and then maybe as things have closed down again, maybe it's gone back up. But if you start to see it trending back down, I would watch that very closely. And then you can also use the seasonality here as another bit of as another data point. But I would probably use the search volume the most because this is search volume on Amazon. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to use some of this historical search data to help you navigate whether a product is a good opportunity right now or not. All right. So I know I've covered a lot. We're coming up on the hour. So let me just continue on. I'm going to go back to my slides. Alrighty. So we've talked a lot about how to navigate all of your inventory problems. We've talked a little bit about product research and how to navigate that. If you're interested in trying out any of these tools, then, what is it going to cost you? How do you get your hands on it? The one thing to keep in mind is that Jungle Scout isn't just a product research platform. It's an all-in-one suite for sellers and has every tool that we think you need in order to successfully sell on Amazon. So what else do you get? In addition to our product research tools, such as Opportunity Finder that I just showed you, you also get Keyword Scout. And for those of you that haven't got started yet, keyword research is vital to the lifeblood of your Amazon business, figuring out the keywords that customers are searching for in order to find you. So doing accurate keyword research is an absolute must, and Keyword Scout's tool is the most accurate and comprehensive in the industry. You get that included with your Jungle Scout membership. You also get Listing Builder to take those keywords and help you build out your listings on Amazon. The really cool thing about Listing Builder is that we can actually sync up with your Seller Central account. We can pull in your listing from there. You can update it using the keywords from Keyword Scout, and then you can in fact sync it back to Amazon without even having to leave Jungle Scout. Jungle Scout is the only platform that allows you to do this. So Listing Builder is super exciting as well. But there's still more. In addition, there's a product database. We didn't go through that today, but that's another way to generate product ideas if you have no ideas of what to sell. You've got the product tracker, which I briefly mentioned. Once you've found some opportunities, you add them to the product tracker, which will help you verify the real sales on a daily basis so that you can be really confident in the number of sales that a product does before you go and spend thousands of dollars buying it. Because that stage is crucial. It's the make or break point of your business. So you want to make sure that you can really trust the numbers. Product tracker will get you there. You've got supplier database as well. This helps you either find suppliers or verify suppliers that you might have found elsewhere. That's the next crucial stage after doing product research. But it doesn't stop there. I'm gonna keep things moving. We've got Supplier Tracker. This is a great way to organize all of your supplier outreach, and you can log all of that information in one spot. You've got Jungle Scout Academy. This one is really important because we wanna make sure you don't only have the best tools in the industry, because while that's important, if you don't know how to use them, if you don't have the strategies on how to sell, then you're not gonna succeed. Inside of Academy, you're gonna find dozens and dozens. There's over 130 videos there. I think there's over 30 hours of content, and you're gonna find in-depth tutorials for all of these tools that I've mentioned. In addition to that, you'll also find a complete How to Sell on Amazon course there. So that's a great resource to walk you through all of these steps. But there's still a couple more items included in your Jungle Scout membership. You've got Opportunity Finder, which we have already spoken about. You have Sales Analytics, which is like a little command center for your Amazon business. You can see your overall profitability, your revenue, all of your expenses. It's absolutely amazing for keeping on track of how your business is performing. You've got email campaigns to keep in touch with your customers. You have promotions to help you get started and launch. You've got alerts so that you can keep on top of important events happening on your account or to your competitors. So that's a really useful sort of ninja tool to use. And you've also got the extension, which works live on Amazon.com. And that will give you a snapshot of any search page or product listing page of how many units it sells and gives you like a lot of amazing data live on Amazon. Okay, so that's a lot. So how do you get your hands on all of these tools? You head to junglescout.com/pricing. So for all of these tools together, our most popular plan is $49 per month. So I don't know about you, but I think that's a steal for everything that you get that I've just covered. Better yet, if you want to save even more money, you can actually get the annual plan where you'll save $240 if you get the annual plan. So I definitely encourage you to do that. Jungle Scout will help you with your product research, finding those great opportunities to sell, but then it's also going to help you with every other stage of your business. So make sure to head to junglescout.com/pricing in order to get more information and to pick up that one if you are interested. Alrighty, keep in mind as well that we also have a 14-day, no questions asked, money back guarantee, so you really have nothing to lose. Alrighty. Now, we have covered quite a bit already, so I do want to spend some time answering a few questions. So I'm going to jump into the chat box and answer some of your questions. I know the Jungle Scout team is in here, and I'm sure they've been killing it answering a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and track down which ones haven't been answered. Can I really trust the market with product outsourcing? I'm not sure what that one means. Please give some clarification so I can help you out with that one. Let's see. Yeah, it's the per day for that month in the chart. Yeah, that was my mistake. So thanks for sharing that one. Okay. The chat box going so quickly, it's hard to like track down questions. Let's see, if you've got a question that hasn't been answered, I'm just gonna look at the top of the chat box while I, let's see. Okay, Corruption Studios says, how do we go about patents? Now, I am not a lawyer by any means, so this is not legal advice. The best thing to do would be to hire a lawyer to kind of look into patents. But essentially a few sort of quick and dirty things that you can do to at least get a bit of an idea is you can just Google search the name of your product and patent. If there is one in place, there's a good chance that it will appear. You can go to Google Patents and type in the name of your product, and again, you will hopefully see if there is one there. I would look at competitor products on Amazon. Usually if a product is patented, if you can see a photo of the packaging, quite often they will list their patent on that, on the product packaging. They'll often also list it on the Amazon listing. So yeah, so those are a few quick ways to kind of get an idea, because it's like if you see that something has a patent, you probably won't bother going any further. But just because you don't see a patent from doing one of those things doesn't mean there isn't one, but at least if you do detect it, then you'll save some money from going to a lawyer at that point. But ultimately, that's going to be the best thing for you to do. All right. The question is, how can I get the membership? So for that one, as I mentioned, make sure to go to junglescout.com/pricing. pricing in order to check out all of the plans that we've got there. All right. Okay. R. Anderson says, how do you create your own bundles? Bundles are a really great idea if you're looking to sell a new product. This is essentially where you take 2 or more products and you put them together into a single product and sell that on Amazon. The reason you might want to do that is to differentiate your product from your competitors, okay? As more and more sellers come into the space, you want to make sure that your product is as differentiated as possible from the rest, okay? And bundling products is a really great way to do that. So let's say I'm gonna use like a cat scratcher as an example. First thing that popped into my head. If all your competitors are selling cat scratchers and you wanna sell yours, a great way to go about finding something to bundle with it is to look at all those listings. There's a section called frequently bought with. See what products are being frequently bought with cat scratchers. And if you see a whole bunch of listings are doing that, you can then add that product in with your cat scratcher, bundle it together. This also means that you might be able to increase your price and bring your product to market as its own unique differentiated product. You're gonna stand out from all the rest. So now rather than people having to buy it separately, they can buy it all in one with your product. So bundling is definitely a great idea. Lewis says, Lenny, we love you. Thanks so much for the love. I appreciate that. If you guys have gotten value from this webinar, please do me a big favor and hit the thumbs up below. And if you like this content, even consider subscribing as well, just below this video, and even consider hitting the little bell icon so that you get notified every time we have one of these webinars. In fact, we are gonna be having another webinar around this time next week. So if you want to get notified about that, make sure to hit that bell icon. All right, the question is it better to source from the same big manufacturer as the main competitor for a new modified product, or to try to make it with a different, smaller manufacturer making similar products? That's a really good question. Ultimately, I would just look for the best manufacturer of that product. I think it's perfectly fine to go with the same manufacturer that makes your competitors' products, because you're gonna either be customizing it yourself and changing the packaging and so on. What is really useful with going with the manufacturers of your competitors is that you can gauge the product quality, okay? This is a neat little trick. I didn't have time to go into it today, but inside of Supplier Database, you can actually put in the ASIN of a listing on Amazon. It could be your competitor's listing, and it will try to track down the suppliers that your competitor or that ASIN has worked with in the past. And this is really great because if you've got a well-known competitor, I can't think of any offhand. I don't know. I'm gonna say Nike. You obviously couldn't just sell Nike products, but as an example, you could put in Nike, and then you could track down the supplier that makes shoes for Nike. Now, if you're wanting to make shoes, you know that supplier is gonna, that they make really high quality products. Because if you just type in shoe in Alibaba, you're gonna get hundreds and thousands of different suppliers that make shoes. So how do you know that they're gonna make high quality products consistently? A great way to go about it is to find companies that they already work with, and you can then see the reviews on Amazon. So it's like I can look at Nike shoes on Amazon, they've got 5 stars, it's like, great, I know that this supplier makes high quality products. So that's actually the advantage of picking your competitors' manufacturers. Yeah, you don't have to do that. Ultimately, I would say I'm just looking for the best supplier, not necessarily based off of whether a competitor's using them or not. All right, let's see. A Savvy Simple Guy says, when breaking up products for shipping, Hey guys, I'm back. Thank you for your patience. My sincere apologies. We had some technical issues here where the internet cut out, even though it's through Ethernet. So I'm not sure what was up with that. But for those of you that have stuck around, thanks for your patience. I appreciate it. And I'm going to dive in and answer a few more questions before wrapping up today. I'm going to answer a very important one. First, what's Greg doing in that photo in our little technical difficulties screen? I don't know what move it was, but Greg was dancing. So there's your answer. Okay. Thanks for the support, guys. Again, my apologies. All right, this is a quick one. Guys, is JS the best software? Yes, it is. Does anyone know? Does anyone know if I can find a generic item in a retail store and it's not listed on Amazon? Can I create a listing for it? I can't think of any situations where you would find a generic product in a retail store. Essentially, my rule of thumb would be if it's in a retail store, then even if it seems to be generic, it probably does have a generic brand name. It would still be selling under a brand. The best thing to do is to go straight to a manufacturer. That's the way to be certain that you can actually put your own brand on it. Okay, Connie says, I saw an improvement of an item listed on Amazon at Alibaba. I want to purchase, but I don't want to file intellectual property rights. What to do? Essentially, the best thing to do here would be to reach out and get legal advice to figure out whether there's a patent or trademark and that kind of thing on this product, or a patent in this instance. All right. Are you against piggybacking on listings, selling under competitors' listings? I personally wouldn't, what do you call it, piggyback on a listing. There's like a legitimate way to do that, which is called wholesaling or retail arbitrage, and that's different to what I've been talking about today, which is private label, where you take a generic unbranded product and you create your own branded product from that, sell that as your own. It's a very different strategy to either wholesaling or doing retail arbitrage, which is where you sell on other people's listings. So you definitely can do that. There's a good strategy there. We've got some great videos on both of those topics here on our channel. So definitely after this, go into our videos and search for wholesale and retail arbitrage, and you can learn more about that strategy. What should be the minimum price of item that I should go for? As a rule of thumb, I say like $15 to $18, or $15 at a bare minimum. The reason being is that Amazon fees are made up of two parts. So they're made up of a referral fee, which is just a percentage of your overall sales price. So as your price goes up and down, so does that price. So that's fine. That fee. So that part is fine. But then the other part of Amazon's fee is like the FBA fee. This is a set price that they charge you for picking and packing and fulfilling your product. And so this might be $4 or $5. And if you're selling a $10 product, then, $4 or $5 basically makes up 50% of your sales price. Whereas if you have a higher price product at $20, $30, that now becomes such a much smaller percentage of your overall sales price, okay? So that's why higher prices are better, or more so why lower prices, you start to chew into your profit margins quite a bit. Okay, do you recommend starting with retail arbitrage or wholesale when starting Amazon FBA? Yeah, I do. I would say, I personally haven't done that. I started with private label and I like the private label method, but I've seen a lot of people have success with wholesale and retail arbitrage. I've even seen a lot of people that do a hybrid and they have products that are private label as well as those two. The advantage of wholesale and retail arbitrage is that you can get started for a smaller amount of money. Typically, private label will take a greater investment up front, but the upside is that you have more control over your listing and you get higher profit margins and so on. So I'd encourage you to check out, again, the videos that we have on that topic and make up your mind for yourself. All right, are you going to give tech support only for the US market? No, we support a whole bunch of marketplaces. Make sure you go to the pricing page that I mentioned earlier and you'll see them all listed out there that we support. And of course, you'll get customer support for all of the marketplaces that you can use through Jungle Scout. What is the typical MOQ or minimum order quantity for a customized new product? I don't know if there's a typical one. It's definitely a lot higher. Let's say the product might be 500 or 1,000 normally. In those instances, yeah, I feel like it varies a lot, but it would be at least 2,000 or 3,000 usually for a customized product. It usually depends on what type of customization, but a lot of the time it requires the factories to create a whole new mold. So in order for it to make sense to them, they want to guarantee that you're going to be ordering a certain amount. Because if you just order like a few hundred, then it's not worth them the expense of creating an entire new mold. But yeah, it does it does vary quite a bit from what I've seen. That's one of the questions I would ask when you're doing your initial outreach is, do you offer customizations to your product? And what is the minimum order quantity for that? And price. Can I buy other people's different products and sell them as bundles of variety? No, I'd recommend against that. I'd say if you want to bundle a product, make sure that you're bundling generic products direct from the manufacturer so that you can put your own brand and logo on it. I wouldn't, no, I would not take other people's products and put them together and sell as your own. Let's see. All right, and for everyone wondering which channels that which marketplaces we support, they're just up on screen right now. All right. How to make Amazon as our reseller. So it's sold by Amazon, not FBA. I don't know too much about it. That's where I think you use something called Vendor Central rather than Seller Central. That's where you, rather than going through the whole process yourself, you're just selling the product to Amazon and they essentially buy the product from you and then they go and sell it themselves. I haven't done that, or I don't have much experience, but that's what I would Google and start to learn more about if you're interested in that. What are the best filter numbers to search to find a best product? This is a great question because ultimately there is no one set best filter or anything. But of course, you guys don't want the answer of it depends. You obviously want some guidelines. I'd go back and replay this video, and throughout my demonstration of Opportunity Finder, you'll see some good examples there of some rules of thumb, such as at least 300 units per month. You want low competition, or if you're using the product database where you put in a specific number. In the product database, you are judging the competition based off of the number of reviews that listings have. And as a rule of thumb, I go anywhere between a maximum of 50 to 100 reviews as a maximum. so it's not too competitive. And then for price, as I mentioned earlier, I would say a minimum of $15 and then up to $60, $70 as a maximum. But of course, you can bend these rules a little bit. I'd encourage you to start with those filters, see what results you get. More importantly, calculate your profit margins. Really, everything comes down to how much profit you can make. Because you're better off with higher price products, but if you can find a product really, really cheap to source, like 5 cents, 10-cent products, then you can actually sell for a lower price and still make a healthy profit margin. So optimizing for your profit margins is very important. So that's definitely what I'd recommend. And for any of you that might have missed it before, if I can find my screen again, I'd encourage you to check out our profit calculator that I will show you guys. Again, the link to this one is in the description below. So this is a profit calculator you can use to put in your startup costs, your long-term unit costs, and then this will give you your total per unit cost. I'd encourage you to try this one out. Head to the link in the description, come up here, go File, make a copy to duplicate it, or you can even download it, then you can start to fill this information in. And then as further support, if you are interested, we do also have a paid course called Freedom Builder Bootcamp, and that's led by Greg, our CEO, as well as Rolando, one of the other Amazon experts and sellers here at Jungle Scout. This is a comprehensive course that has 10 modules with dozens of lessons that cover the entire process, very in-depth. You can see over Greg's shoulder and Rolando as well as they're going through the entire process. It's great for anyone that might be interested or is looking for more hand-holding along the way. I think our YouTube channel as well as the Jungle Scout Academy are great places to start. But if you want to go that next step and you want, you benefit from having a little bit more hand-holding, we have monthly live coaching calls so that you can get all of your questions answered. I'd highly recommend you check out the Freedom Builder Bootcamp. So if you're interested in that one, make sure to head to freedombuilderbootcamp.com. And there it is. So quick plug for that one. That is definitely a great resource for anyone that is interested. All right, I'm gonna take a couple more questions and then we're gonna wrap it up for today. You guys have been awesome sticking around. I really appreciate it. Let's see, completed. All right. Okay, Ryan's asking a question about what's your current inspection process? Do you full inspection on the day of it completed, or do you partial while they're making it and the other half at completion? I think you can, there are types of inspections, I believe, that will inspect the product whilst it's being made. I haven't used that before. The most common type of inspection that a lot of people use is called a pre-shipment inspection. So this is actually once the product's been made and before it's been shipped out. And the advantage of this is that you want to do it before it gets shipped out, because if it gets shipped to the US and there's a problem with it, it's going to be a lot harder to ship it back and to kind of negotiate all the way through that. But a pre-shipment inspection is fine, even though they've already made the product. If you've made it very clear in your agreement when you place the order, if you put it in your agreement that you're going to be getting an inspection done, these are the things that the inspector is going to be checking for, and essentially your supplier in the agreement is agreeing to manufacture the product to your specifications. Then if the inspector comes in, they do a whole bunch of tests on your products. If they deem that it doesn't meet those standards, then you've got the agreement to show your supplier, as well as you've got the inspector backing you up to show that the product doesn't meet those that criteria. And then generally your supplier will go back and fix the problem. But you just need to make sure that you state all of that in the agreement at the time of your purchase order. So yeah, that's what I would recommend is a pre-shipment inspection. But if you are interested, I do believe there are other inspections throughout the creation process. All right. Oh, Alaya says, I have a question about DDPC shipping. If I go this route, do I have to pick up my goods at the US port, or does my supplier ship my good to my destination? To be honest, I don't know. I'm not a shipping expert. I generally just leave most of that to the freight forwarder, and I've kind of kept that pretty hands off, so I don't know offhand. If you are a Jungle Scout member, I'd encourage you to check out Academy, because we have a whole module in there about shipping that I believe would answer your question. As it does talk about DDP in there. And I know that it's also covered in the Freedom Builder Bootcamp if you're interested in checking that one out. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know the exact answer to that. V says, will there be a bootcamp video recording in case I missed it? You might be thinking of two different things here. Today's webinar will be recorded. It will be live on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to go back and rewatch this one if you would like to. The bootcamp is a different program of ours. Go to freedombuilderbootcamp.com in order to check that one out. But that is a full course that will guide you all the way through selling on Amazon. So that's a different product if you're interested in checking that out. I'm going to take one last question. Also, if you want to access the profit calculator that I mentioned earlier, the URL is on the screen. Let's see, as I'm looking for a question, Ryan says, I think your bootcamp is a great idea because a lot of FBA gurus will sell you through their program and then soon disappear. Jungle Scout will stay up to date and is not going anywhere. Yeah, that's absolutely right. We're constantly adding more and more content to that one. So the bootcamp is definitely not going anywhere. I'd recommend you check it out. All right, keywords. Let's see, what have we got? All right, final question for today. Do you recommend using Jungle Scout's Chrome extension for product research in conjunction with a product tracker? If so, how would you use it? Yeah, that is a great question. Seeing as that was one of the topics for today, product research, I'll do a quick visual for you guys. Let's see. So I'm just gonna cut to my screen. All right, so I haven't shown you the extension, so this is perfect. Great way to end today's webinar. So the extension runs, it's very small to see, but it runs live on Amazon. Here's the ticking fabric that I looked up from Opportunity Finder. You now run the Chrome extension, and this is what you see. It gives you an overview of this opportunity. You see the average monthly sales, sales rank, price, average number of reviews, which is actually kind of high, and it gives you an opportunity score. So the opportunity score is out of 10. The higher the number, the better. So 7 is actually a great opportunity, but keep this in mind, it's just sort of a starting point. It gives you at a glance whether this is a possibility or not. From there, you want to dig into the numbers a little bit because already something doesn't look quite right. It's a little bit skewed here. So if I look at the reviews, they're mostly really low, but we've got a couple here that have a lot of reviews. So to me, that would start to rule out this product already because there's a bunch of listings here with thousands of reviews. But I think the opportunity score was just put off because there are at the same time lots of listings that also have very few reviews. So I think that's, that's something that is confusing me a little bit, trying to go, oh, is this a good opportunity or not? But let's go through an example of this. Let's say that you did look at this, it's got a good number of monthly sales, and let's say that there weren't these listings with thousands of reviews, they're all smaller like this. This is essentially what you want. You want sort of at least 4, 5, 6 of the top 10 listings to be, roughly under 100-ish or less. And then if you've got like a couple of listings that maybe have a couple of hundred reviews, 200 or 300 reviews, then I think that's okay. You just don't want to see, in this instance, listings that have thousands of reviews. That starts to get a little bit too competitive. In this instance, I would potentially rule this one out. But for instance, if you did like this one, what I would do is come over here. You've got this plus sign, which will add the product to the product tracker. So I could go through, I could click all of these here, and then over on Jungle Scout, you would see these in the product tracker. All right, now you'll see some that are already here. I'm just gonna open up parfait dessert cups. These don't look to be selling all that well. Let's see ones that are. So what do you see here in the product tracker? Well, if I open one of these listings up, you'll now get to see the daily units sold for this particular product. This is really helpful because if you just look at one period of time and you see the estimated number of sales, now more than ever, the numbers do fluctuate quite a bit. But if you're looking at the daily sales on a regular basis, in this instance, we're looking at probably 30 days. We're seeing 30 days worth of data. Now we can see what really the average is. If we just looked at this day here, we would see like, okay, they sell 22 units per day. Whereas if we looked on another day, it's like 10 units per day. You don't necessarily know which one is true, but by tracking it over time, now we've got a much better picture of the average. We can see that it's 17 units per day. So that's why the product tracker is really important. You want to find products in Opportunity Finder and Product Database. You can also use the Chrome extension to help you with these ideas. The way that you use the Chrome extension is the Product Database and Opportunity Finder generate ideas for you when you have no idea what to sell. The extension is great if you've got ideas in mind. If you're like, oh, I wonder I've got a water bottle here, like I wonder do water bottles sell well? So you could then look up a water bottle, for instance, and then run the extension to get a snapshot of whether it's a good opportunity or not. So the extension is great if you've got ideas in mind that you want to search on Amazon and then you can verify them. And then either way, whether you use Opportunity Finder or Product Database or whether you use extension, you then add all of those into the product tracker. And I would recommend tracking at least 10 to 15 listings out of that niche for at least a couple of weeks to determine the average number of sales. And from that data, that's when I would be making my final product decision. So I hope that's helped you guys. I'm gonna wrap it up there for today. I appreciate all you guys sticking around. I hope you've got some value from today. Again, if you have, please give me a thumbs up down below. That helps me know that I am doing a good job, and I'll make sure to keep coming back and giving you guys great content. Also consider subscribing if you haven't already. All the very best with your product research and your own businesses, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.